صباح الخير. We're gonna have to start. معلش عندنا some turbulence كده. ايه؟ اوكي. اوكي. الصوت كده كويس؟ Very good. My name is Sam Zater. I work as an endodontist. I've been in business for 39 years. I've received my training in Nebraska and back in a long time ago in the US, and then I had my honorary fellowship from the Royal College of Ireland in 2009-10 حاجة كده يعني. I'm not sure if you're aware of the schedule changes. Dr. Muhammad, the next speaker, has had some emergencies and had to apologize for the lecture, so I'm going to be covering the whole hour, which gives me more time to do what I want to do. So I'm going to involve some basic endodontics as we speak. Okay? Before we start, I'd like to thank the organizing committee. I'm sure there's an army of people working on this conference. I've done a lot of conferences before, and I know how much hard work involved there. And not exclusively, but these are the names that I was dealing with, preparing for my visit. طبعا دكتور إيهاب هيكل, دكتور محمد خطاب, and دكتورة نشوى جمال. I'm very grateful and I do thank them very much. آخر شكر is this young lady here. I left Egypt in 1982, and whenever I come here I have some problems and traumas dealing with people, especially في governmental areas. And I was in the association, in the dental association or syndicate, whatever, and Miss Hiba was very kind to help me and go way out of her track to help, so I'm very grateful for her. And it reflects how professional the syndicate is. Okay. As for the title to begin with, I'm kind of a picky person, so I play with words sometimes to serve the purpose. So if you look at this, if you want to know what's the title of my presentation, the elusive quest for perfection, there are two words. The first one is elusive, and it's العربي بتاعها سعي وهمي لتحقيق الكمال. If you look at this spelling here, but then if you write it elusive with the E, and it really reflects exactly what I mean. I've been involved with the dense supply Melfer. I have no conflict of interest, but I was part of development of some instruments in there as a prototypes and try them and see how they design it, what the problems are. So it's an illusion. My homework that I have today is I'm going to tell you and highlight the fact that we need to enjoy the instruments that we have, but understand that these are still limited. We'll never be there, I think. Okay? The outline for the presentation today, we'll talk about, we have a kindly long introduction just to set up basis for what we speak as we speak. Then I'm going to juggle between the clinical perspectives and the industrial standpoint where we go. And then finally I'm going to make, surprisingly, one very simple, short conclusion. Okay, so this is what we have in the next hour. And please, if you allow me, I'd like this to be an informal kind of discussion. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise and ask as we speak, if the chairman wouldn't mind, of course. Time frame of modern endodontics. See, I've been doing endodontics since 1980, and this is what we used to do. If you look at this is the time frame, we use the axis, shaping, irrigation, and obturation. Now, with the modern technology, this is where we stand. Look at this. Now we have the microscopes, we have studies in the anatomy, we have the cone beam, we have the micro CTs, and we realize that anatomy is very complicated and we need to spend more time on our access phase. So we took the time we saved in shaping using the rotary instruments, we invested in the axis, and then we realized that we need more time for irrigation. It's not just the cleaning thing. And now they came up with the new agitation systems and techniques for our irrigating solutions. And finally, of course, when we come up before the lateral condensation and warm vertical compaction and so forth, now we have the injectable gutta-percha, the core gutta-percha like the thermophils and so forth. So the take-home point out of this slide here is that this is where we stand now. And when I come here for courses, I feel that some fellows are going in circles. It's a simple thing. In order to solve a problem, you have to identify one. So if you're looking for like CME courses or attending lectures or whatever, you have to understand which part that you save the time with. The very last one is when you become an expert. Then you can shorten your working time. But you don't go to the Rotaries and thinking that the Rotary is going to help you save time. Hopefully make more money, I guess. Okay? These two cases I've done. This one I've done, this is a simple stainless steel step down or crown down technique with the warm vertical compaction filling. And the second one was done by the Rotary system, probably was TF adaptive at the time. And if that one took me an hour, this one probably took me 45 minutes. So don't think that the Rotary instrument is going to help. If you go in there with this concept, you're going to skip very important factors here. So let's review 5 basic things before we get to the Rotary thing. Number 1, again, we have to understand the phases of endodontics, and we have to see if we have a problem practicing. We have to know where do we have a problem, and then we work on correcting it. Okay? And if any of the room is not an endodontist, I would respect, of course, but then I hope that everybody here is a dentist. And then you take cleaning and shaping out, and then you end up with diagnosis and cleaning shape. You still have to, as a dentist, you have to know all what is related to diagnosis and providing treatment. And if you make up the pyramids, that's what I call it. And I've used this term, I've created that term, pyramids of success. You'll find that the top is diagnosis, and then the basis is everything else that we do. And if we think that knowing all this is going to help us cure the patients or do successful treatment, we're wrong. There's one very important thing here that I think this is the homework I gave myself from the lecture today, is trying to help people understand not to bite more than they can chew. If you send the Rotary instrument and the wrong canal, don't blame the instrument. You're the one who drove the instrument to the wrong canal. So that's something we really have to respect. Like I think for this case, this was a husband that was studying in Ukraine, and he had the treatment done there. The wife, Hollywood smile, full mouth reconstructions, blah blah blah, and this is how she presented. Her prosthodontist removed all the restorations that she has, the distal ones and the posterior ones, and asked us to do the retreatment. So the question is to treat or to refer. That is the question. We want to make sure that we know that before we get to the Rotary system. It's not that we have a tool that we can take it and use it and it would help us solve the problem. Unfortunately, this is not the case. So he came to us, and we started with the upper left quadrant, and we did the retreatment or the technology thing, and this is how we ended up with at the end. Okay? So this is number 2. That patient came to us, he was seeking treatment for the upper first molar, and I saw this little guy here, and I requested the periapical radiograph, and then I asked the patient, when did you have the treatment? And she said 5 years ago. And the body forgiveness is very amazing sometimes, because actually after practicing this long time, there's still much we don't know. I'm not going to claim here that we know everything. It's just very complicated. The healing is very complicated, and I think Dr. Ahmed Abdurrahman will talk about that later today. So, we're not inventing the wheel. I would advise you to go to the website of the American Institution of Endodontists. They have what they call the case difficulty assessment. We can spend one day talking about this, but in general, they classified the clinical cases into 3 phases. Minimal difficulty, moderate difficulty, and high difficulty. I made it like the traffic light. And the question here is, you are the only one who knows where you stand. What is yellow for me could be red for you, could be green for you. And this is the baseline. This is the baseline. We have to make sure that the case we choose are within the capability of ourselves, of that we're sure that we can do that, because we don't want to intercept problems. I see a lot of posts and a lot of people talking about bypassing an instrument and how to bypass a ledge or to retrieve an instrument, and at the end of the day, nobody much talks about how to stop that or prevent it. The third point here is I want to tell you that Jose Sequeira and Isabella Rojas, they have a very good academy in Brazil that they teach even a PhD programs in oral microbiology if anybody's interested. And they were able to isolate 400 types of bacteria from the canals. The Rotary files are not going to help us. They're not going to do that for us. We have to do other things for that. And in a study that was, I'm trying to cut down a lot of articles. I know this is a clinically mixed audience, is a big challenge for the presenter because you have to please everyone and everyone has their own interests. So please bear with me if I use some references here and there just to please everyone, I guess. So in this study they were looking at, they reviewed studies from 1950 to 2014, trying to see how can this, what we're doing, can we really, this is bacterial studies, bacteriological studies, can we really keep the canals clean or make the canal clean, which is not. I know we all know that, but if anybody's interested, this is desertion. I'm not going to spend time on that either. The take-home point of this slide is that now they talk about the apical size. Why I'm talking about this here? Because as we proceed, we're going to talk about the taper, the 04, 06 taper. We're going to talk about the cross-section, right? And what are we trying to do? Because then you revert the question, how far should you enlarge the canal? Is that me? No. How far should we enlarge the canal? We all know the concept. It's a concept. In the literatures, you find it, كلنا بنتخانق عليه. Any non-Arabic, oh, you are non-Arabic speaking, the audience. Okay, so we have, people talk about the canal. I'm going to do this very quickly because this might not be interest of anyone, but I think this is the basis for our foundation for our healing here. First, they said, okay, no, it's the canal size. How far do we enlarge the canals? We used to teach students that you have to enlarge the canal 2 or 3 sizes from the first size file that binds the canal at the actual working. I'm an examiner for the Royal College, and to me, words are very important. When you say working lengths, you have to identify with that one. I always look at people as their tongue is their business card. So whatever you say is what is going to reflect your person, how much you know. If you want to be strong, you cannot sit still and say, I'm strong and strong. You either have to lift weights, so people will point at you as strong, or they talked first about the canal side, but then who? Say, what is the initial apical file? Binding could be somewhere on the canal, and we do see this a lot of times. You find the file is tied on the canal, and then you go to the next one, suddenly the other one is loose because of the irrigations within the canal system. Then they said, no, it's not the canal size. It is the apical size, the size of the apex, whether you go for, and we lived that, and I told you I lived this era, where we had to enlarge the canals up to size 40 at least, Ronestad and his team back in the 80s. And we were doing that with the stainless steel files. Can you imagine how challenging the situation was? Then they talked about the taper. No, it is not the size, it is not the apical size, it is the taper. And again, if you lived the GT time, the Buchanan files, you realize that, again, the study was done, it's not helping anymore. Then they realized that the canal is not rounded. The canal is 25% of the time the canal is not rounded, and you have a long diameter and a short diameter. Then we went to the area of the files with the expanding type of files, like this self-adjusting file and the new FKG EndoShaper thing. So this is number 3. Number 4, if we think that the rotary instruments are going to clean the canal better than the hand files, this study will contradict that. You know how many hand file techniques that we use, traditional techniques that we use? We know these 2. They're very common, the step back and the crown down, right? And if you're a bit expert, you look for the Rawan technique, what was it? The balanced force technique. That would be the most that we know. But surprisingly, we have 19 different types of manual things. And if you look at the chronology, they started 1961 up to 94. Every year they're coming up with a technique. They're trying to help with a technique using the stainless steel file. But then they stopped because when they started to the Rotary, using the Rotary thing, this list is down to only 3. So again, for bacteria reduction, Sequoia and Rojas, again, they did the study and they found no difference in terms of removing bacteria. So the Rotary instrument is not going to help us clean canals. Okay? This one, the upper one was done with the hand file stainless steel, and the lower one was done with the, I think this was probably was PTN, Pro Taper Next. And we almost got the same results. So the success is that the instrument, it's the operator who's using the instrument. We published that a long time ago in the Quinces International. I'm going to try to throw for you, because I have number of years of practicing, and I show you things that we have no explanation for. This case, you see, 1986, we have a big lesion. If you look at this one, you'd say that it's large, very apical radiolucency with the well-defined radiographic margins, right? We all were taught that this is a classical cyst and that we need surgery, okay? But then this is not the case. She healed. I lost tracking of her, and she was one time, and this is the date here on the, I'm sorry it's not shown there. It turns up to 33 years. And it's again, it's Mother Nature. Everything is breaking there, but the endo is still surviving. Hand files, lateral condensation, no agitation. يعني المفروض أنا أروح بقى. يعني whatever we're saying might not be much related to the healing at the end of the day. The last thing is our Rotary file. So this study was done by Ove Peters 2001, and the file that we use, even the Rotary file that we use inside the canal, is not touching the canal walls 35%. 35% of this is the red. The red is the prepared the canal, and the green is the unprepared the canal. With the technology, when they superimpose the images together, they realize that whatever is green is the original wall of the canal that was not even touched by the Rotary instrument. The reason I have this long introduction here is just try to highlight the fact that Rotary don't solve problems. They can create one. If you are, they will create one. ازيك يا بروف؟ صباح الخير. That's okay, no problem. But we not our file is not touching the canal wall 35% of the time. And surprisingly also, this study, I would advise anybody interested in the mechanics of the Rotary system to go back. This was done in, I think, in, I cannot read, of 2017. And they tell you that they have no clinical significance, and this file is better than this file. Where? Better than this file in the middle and coronal third of the canal. How about the apical part? None of the files. I have so many literatures, but I'm not using here because it's not the appropriate place to discuss. It would be too much academics. But the issue at the end of the day that the instruments that we use do create problems inside the canals. And this study, this was in 2016, they were able to develop a video camera that can lively videotape or capture the movement of the file inside the canal. And guess what they found? Look at the cracks here. Here, right there. And it was, and I like that the term here, I said, we are also able to visualize the often claimed, but seldomly seen defects. So, to summarize that, one, we need to understand the pyramids of success. Two, we need to understand the fact that the Rotary files are no better than the hand files in terms of removing bacteria. Also, we need to understand that the files we use do create problems. Why am I saying all this? Because at least I have to master what I know. So, because there is things that I don't know inside the canal doing our procedures. The last thing here is, are we safely cleaning canal? Yani our file is not following the curvature, is not removing the bacteria. Forget about breaking bowel separation والكلام ده. But now, is it safely? No, it is not. This study was done by Hosman, and I think you had him in the Pan Arab sometime, yeah, last time, yeah. Hosman, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting the guy personally, but I like his study very much. They did the review of what the literature is talking about the files and what happens in there. And this is all kind of damages. We weaken the tooth from inside, we do cause erosion, we decrease the hardness. Not just that, that was very surprising. I didn't know that before. Look at this. They find nickel out of your file, nickel titanium, nickel in the periapical tissue. Can you imagine that? Your file that you're cleaning the canal with does release nickel from the nickel titanium that can go down, and they were able to isolate it from the periapical tissue. See how serious the situation is. Then they came up with their conclusions. Again, look at this. Tensional implantation, amalgam, zinc-free, I guess. Let me put it this way. Where we extracted the tooth and put the silver points back and with the amalgam, the patient healed and they put the crown and that. And this one, the implant people would, the surgeons would love that, to take the tooth out and put the implant there. Okay? Success rate. We'll never have 100% success rate. There's a big list in the literature, why do we fail? And I think, Dr. Ahmed, you have a lecture about healing, right? You have a lecture about healing, healing, yes. I was surprised that one of the reasons for failure, endodontic failure, is psychological problems. The patient has psychological problems that, with all respect, that he's not convinced that he's healing. He's always complaining. So we'll never reach 100%. And I bring this down into two things. One is the anatomy, the complexity of the anatomy, and two is the limitation of the instruments that we use. For the anatomy, Ahmed was a student probably with Paul Damer, and they did the study. I don't know if you're familiar with this. They're trying to see the anatomy is very complex, and they're even coming up with the new nomenclature of the tooth anatomy. If you want to talk about this tooth, you have to memorize all this stuff. Buccal root and how many roots. The issue the message I'm trying to deliver here is the anatomy is very complicated. And we all, every day we know that, we learn that anatomy is far more complicated than we do understand now. And then this is the latest book by John Engel. And we lived with the Vertucci. First we know the Frank Wine classification type 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they came up with Vertucci's. He added to the list to make them 8. But then this time in Cert Italian, they did, you know how many root canal configurations we have? 23. Are we treating them all? I don't think we are. I don't think we are. Okay. Now, of course, with the technology, and we had the computer. This eyepiece. This was 1999. We have the caps, the original microscope that has 2 eyepieces, one for the assistant and one for the operator. And with all, we were able to see better. But that gave us much more homework than expected. I was interested in anatomy at that certain time of my life, and our work was still quoted in literatures, and you can see this one here, Zatter, and this makes me feel younger, I guess. Okay, this is the anatomy. I was very confused when I treated that one. I didn't know what is happening, how many canals we have. I had a long series of x-rays, but this is what I'm sharing with you here now. So anatomy 1, now we're getting into business, the rotary systems, and we have to understand that cleaning is the job of the file and irrigation. And while doing that, shaping, we want to maintain the canal shape, we don't want to transport, and finally, we don't want to encounter any separation, either torsional fracture or cyclic fatigue. We all know that, all endodontists know that. But I'm going to take you to this radiograph, and this is the immediate post-operative radiograph. And you look at the radiograph, and I'm going to leave it for a second and see what do you think of the filling. What I'm trying to say here is that look at the original X-ray. This is the root. Case difficulty assessment, right? This is we have a binet root. You have a double curvature at the end here, right? And this is the original canal in yellow. And if you look at the preparation here, and you superimpose it there, this is what we end up with. This is not should not be a problem of the instrument. The operator who took the instrument that far is responsible for encountering such a thing. Forget about this. So systems, the big question, which system should you use? The story, I'm telling you a story here, guys, how things were developed. Initially, when they came up with the file, the nickel titanium file, look at the term, the toughest spring steel. This is the concept at 1912. They want a file that is stiff and they can push into the canal. And we lived with that stainless steel files, but there is no memory in the file. The file doesn't follow the curve, and we end up with problems like this. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. And when we don't, we end up with all these problems. Then Walia came up with the nickel titanium in 1988, where everybody was happy. Now we had no memory, now we have a shape memory files. Oh, good. So you bend the file, and when you leave it, it will go back, so it will not create problems. And they talked about enjoying flexibility and whatever it is. Then they realized, no, I want to bend the file, and I want it to stay bent. I want to go back. This is where they came up with the control memory. This is the evolution of technology. This is how the companies are thinking and working to provide you the tools that we use here. So if I ask someone, what type of file are you using? And he doesn't know what type of taper, is it heat treated or not? I wouldn't expect him to have a good result. So this is not, what I'm saying here is not, it's very clinically oriented. I'm not talking academics here at all. It's a totally different ballgame. Then when the companies realized how important heat treatment is, they started doing all kind of types of files. Why I heat treat the file? The file will be more flexible, I can bend, it will stay bent, it will go through the curve, and mostly it will not, hopefully, exhibit a cyclic fatigue. Okay? First time I visited Palac in Switzerland, then supply, you know, Melfer was watchmakers in watchmaking business. And because of the meticulous Swiss watches thing, they moved into developing this is the very first instruments, devices that they used to make the files, the hand files, the stainless steel files. But then, if you're interested, this is where your files come from. This is where your files come from. Like a piano wires, they call it, and this is the tool. I've done this and we've seen this, and I'll share with you some jokes about that. And then the file goes in here, it's a grinded files, and it goes into the machine here. That will decide the cross section of the file that you have. Just like that, and it comes out with the cross section, and then this is how the file is. It's a very, عشان كده I'm sorry. The reason here that I have all respect to any other company. I have no segregation, Chinese, Korean, American, British, whatever. It's a quality control thing. I've seen people that they check each file on the microscope, and the bad one they just throw and it goes. They throw the bad ones before it reaches this. It makes a difference. The price that you're paying does have a value for it. Okay, and then they have the file and they put the hand in, and then they color mark the size, and then this is the stubber, they cut the stubber and they add the stubber at the end of the day. And then this is the file that we have. The golden question, which system should we use? You get confused. Everyone is claiming that their file is better, but we all know that there's no file is better. That question has no answer. Why? This is I've done this, I was preparing for the Pan Arab last 2017, and it came down to 155. I stopped counting in November 2015. I'm sure the list is much more now than now. طب هنختار any file? Based on what? Trial and error? I don't know. If you listen to Cliff Randall, they tell you, and he's true. It depends if you use which file. It depends on where were you trained, you were brainwashed, where were you, whatever, who trained you, what practice are you in, are you solo or are you in a group practice? The owner buys this type because it's cheaper or whatever. But this is not the reason for choosing files. This is. taper cross section. I don't know if I should go into this, but okay, I'm going to leave this one. I broke this down into this slide. This slide is a very important one to me because it really tells you exactly what type of, how things are going. Presumably, each file you use, you should know at least an answer. Where does it fit here? Where does it fit here? Please, if you don't, go back and try to read. Go back and try to read. Okay? I'm going to choose bits and pieces from this here and there just for the time's sake. ضحكوا شوية. I was at the time when the profile was developed, and I was lecturing for the supplier for that. Profiles is the fixed taper. The hand files that we have is 0.02 taper. We all know that, right? The D0, D16, everything changed by time. D1, D16. D1, D16, right? Then D0, D16, right? And it was a passive file, has a radial land. I'm not going to go into this details, but the concept. لا الصوت كده مش مظبوط. Audio, please. Can you bring the sound down, please? There's nobody here. Anyway, so we start with the fixed taper, and then suddenly, the whole concept that I'm going to show you that one single company are producing totally through different files. هتفيد. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Is it working now? Sure.
اخي فصل ولا البطاريه ممكن تنور جاي يا حبيبي.
Hello? Hello? No? ازيك يا حميد؟ تمام الحمد لله. لا هو من عندك يا فتاة. اوبس. اشتغل؟ لا هو تقولوش. Okay, I was reading. Okay, so we came up with the profile. That's a fixed taper thing. The point I'm telling you that عشان not to be confused, this one company is producing 3 different types of files. So which one is better? It's like a buffet. You make your choice. You make your choice, but at least you understand why did you choose this track. So the profiles, it has a fixed taper, and then they came up with the Pro Taper and then the BTU, Pro Taper Universal. They realized that the problem is up here. That's what they believe in. So this is why they use the progressive taper, as you can see where the file is bigger in here than the apical part. So they're removing the coronal part from the canal, so the rest of the job would be easier for the tip of the file. And is that clear for you? And the company, وقع تاني الصوت. And the company was saying that we produced BTU, Pro Taper Pro Taper file. Remember the wire? 5,800 kilometers. That is equal to the distance between Paris and New York. So see how the brainwash is? Where is this file now? Of course, they came up now with the Pro Taper Gold. But the point that I'm trying to deliver here is that whatever we see now is not it. It's just not it. Because I've lived this era where this was the best thing. And then they realize it's not the best. And this is the length, right? By weight, 12 elephants. 12 elephants. They produced BT pro taper file, come ton, I don't know, 78 tons. And the file is not there anymore. That's that era. I'll give you the time frame for that, this time span. And then they came up with a pro taper next with a totally different design, different movement, which is not, you by the way, the swaggering effect where the file, where the file touches only, see here the cross section? You need to know the file that you use, how does it work inside the canal? Because this design will help you get rid of the debris that you create inside the canal, right? But if you're using this one, it is not as much. You need to stop more often. You need to go and recapitulate. You need to go and irrigate. Simple as that. Why do I need to know about the cross section? And I get irritated from people who look at endodontics this way, that they're so superficial, unfortunately. Then technology هتخلص العملية. They're never going to stop. Companies will never going to stop. Then they brought this on. They learned about the heat treatment. Then they come up with the Pro Taper Gold and made the Pro Taper Universal and make it Pro Taper Gold. They heat treated the file to enjoy the memory, the control memory thing. Where are they going next? We don't know. So this is one system. They started with fixed taper. Now they have progressive taper, right? And then the era of the 2010s, we start talking about the single file technique. That's a totally different thing. One file will do the job, and we'll talk about this, inshallah, Pan Arab next December. The reciprocation thing. خلاص؟ هنعرف نختار أي فايل من دول. طب let's make it more. The same company, huh? They came up with IDS. They launched a new file in 2019, March 2018, that is called True Anatomy. Ove Peters again developed this one. This one is regressive taper. الله. يعني دلوقتي نقفل الشباك ولا نفتح الشباك. Is it regressive ولا progressive? Which one is better? It depends whatever works in your hands and the size of the original canal before you touch. Okay? It's not like we just go to the drawer and I liked one time when we had an interview, Ahmed, that one on the website, and I see that you have so many systems that he uses, because it doesn't make a difference. It has to be good quality ones, because not one system is going to be good for all canals. We have to know that for a fact. This is the time frame بقى. Look at this here. 92 شغالين علينا بقى لغاية دلوقتي ومش عارفين هنوصل لفين بقى. Okay. The issue is that the rotary file, we're not using the rotary file just to create a space and put get a person there. The job is not that easy. To me, and this is very important, if any non-endodontists or endo experts are doing endodontics or newcomers to the field, this is the most important slide that I have on the presentation today. Why? Because this is what I call the homework of the file. Look at this. Our job, literally, is to send the initial apical file down all the way down. Our job is here. If I respect this relation between the stopper, it's a never-ending relationship between the reference point and the stopper right here. This is what we're trying to do. This is why when you place the file inside the canal, and you tap on it, you don't hold it, and you tap on it when it stops, you look here. Okay, how much challenge do I have in there? What am I going to do? I've seen people that, okay, this is 3, 5, 4 millimeters. They take it either with hand files in its counting phase. They take the file and they go all the way. And then in order for them to get the file back, you have to stick your leg in the patient mouth and pull the file, because you'll never be able to, because you've taken this couple millimeters, 3, 4 millimeters at one shot, and you lock yourself in, and then you abuse the instrument, it gets separated, and then it's an instrument fatigue, not friction, which is not the case. So this is the most important part in here, is to appreciate the homework of the file. Then, of course, we need to have our irrigation reach down there, and finally hopefully get a person. See, these are the phases. This is blocks without doing anything. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring this little guy here all the way down just like this guy. As simple as that. طبعا of course inside the canal we talk about irrigation and disinfection and so forth. But this is the most important thing. Identifying the problem. If I have a problem with the filing, and if I have a problem with this in hand files, if I don't understand and appreciate the concept with the hand files, with the rotary, it's a totally different ball game. Rotary, it will, with the screwing effect and some of the systems, you're going by the seat of your pants, I guess. Okay, so when we successfully create the space, and this is where the progressive taper works, because they want to clear the canals up here, right here. So the file would move easier down there, hopefully. And doing that, even everything has a reason. Like here, in doing this, it's a phases. When you do your cleaning and shaving thing, you have 3 phases there. You have the green, the yellow, and the red. We understand the red is because of the curvatures. The green is safe, hopefully, but I've seen people perforate with the Gates Glidden. But why is the middle part yellow? It's because of the stripping of the furcation, because of this part right here, dangerous zone of furcation. So when you use the file inside the canal, this all has to be in mind before you proceed. Very quickly, the steps. Initially we do scouting. Scouters دول عارفين كشافين الكورة اللي بيروحوا يدوروا على اللعيبة. It's called scouters. Scouting is when you scout the canals. And I look at it as if you're taking impression to the canal. And when you take the file out of the canal, please don't take the file and rotate it and look at it. Try to fix everything and take the file out and look at it. It will tell you where the curvature is. It will tell you a lot of things. And usually you do that with the stainless steel files. That will help you as if you're taking impression of the inside of the canal. Now I know that challenge. And then when you put your file and you know how much distance you have to go through the canal, then we talk. You do the scouting, whether you agree or not on apical patency, this is not the time to talk about it, but it is there. I do believe in apical patency in non-vital teeth. Then we take the root length, can skip that, and we appreciate the difference between the anatomic apex and radiographic apex. Then the concept of rotary comes again. We don't move from the hand file to the rotary file without creating what we call a glide path. And this glide path this is where your rotary instruments are going to go. You want to do this with hand files, you want to do it with the rotary files. I have, of course, the rotary are better, but you still can do that with the, sometimes I used to do it with the headstrom files, 20, 25, the R files, to create the glide path where the file is. البرودكشن هتقولوا لي ارقام ووجع دماغ و not clinically oriented. I have respect to that, but look at this. The concept is this is what the file what we use, right? كل ده انا رايح في الحته بتاعت ال3 4 مللي دول هنزلهم سيفلي ازاي؟ بهاند فايل روتري فايلز. but this is the concept. What am I going to do with that? دول الفايلات if you do hand files. I'm using this just for example. ابتدوا يعملوا الباث فايلز. Look at the diameters. الناس دي عايزه تعمل ايه؟ I'm going to try to معلش هيفلت مني شويه عربي يعني. What are they trying to do? Look at the tables here. apical. بصوا هنا وهنا كده. There you go. They're trying to create a file. They always, every time you're using a file inside the canal, think of the next one. I have a problem with my kids. I always tell them, predict. Where are you going next step? You're not going to be there suddenly. You're not going to change files suddenly. You know that this file, you're going to need the next one. But this is why you need to know, when you buy a file, you need to understand. Sometimes the representatives don't understand, even representatives, the difference between the gap between the file here and the next size. Because this is going to tell us how far the file is going to stop. And I don't want to have a long distance to deal with. خلاص? Then technology came and they came up, they put everything together in one file, that is the ProGlider files. Where if you look at the diameters here and there, look at this here. Now they end up with, this is the pro glider, the stubber, the apical size is 16 and the maximum taper is 82, and this is the sequence of the taper. ليه بنعرف الكلام ده كله؟ دلوقتي بقى this is a very good file, but unfortunately it's only in reciprocation. So if your system doesn't have a reciprocating option, you're going to have to buy one if you want to use this one. And I know a lot of people that are using it, and before any system that they use. I did because I get it free, of course. But if you're paying for it, that's a different ball game. Okay. مش هطول كتير في الحته دي، بس اللي انا عايز افهمه بقى احنا now I'm taking you in sequence. Now we understand the importance of the sequence. السيستم بقى اللي انا رايح اشتريه لازم اعمل ايه؟ Can I do some Arabic? Okay. Okay, حاضر. Now this is what it is. افهم بقى the glide path file. احنا اتفقنا ان احنا we have to use a glide path and we have to create a space. This is the size of the glide path. اشوف بقى الشركه اللي انا رايح اشتري منها المسافه بين النكست سايز فايل. ايه ده؟ اوكي النكست سايز فايل معلش بقى هو سلايد كونفيوزنج بس look at one system. بص اللون واحد. يعني look for this one here. My maximum ايه ده؟ 16 the file the distance خليني اخد واحد يكون اوضح شويه. distance بين ده يعني this is 1403 and then the next size is going to be 2504. الرقمين دول هيبقوا ريفلكتد فين بقى؟ على الستوبر بتقف فين فوق. فاهمين؟ يعني باخد ده نزل للاخر هجيب التاني بقى عشان ينزل. كل ما كانوا الرقمين دول قريبين whenever those two numbers are close to each other, the more safer the system is, the less stress the file is going to have. Hey, you agree or you disagree? Okay. Okay. حطيناهم جنب بعض بس just for us to understand. طب خلاص نبدأ آخرين كمان. This is ده السايز اهو ده السيستم بتاع البرو تيبر ده السايز بتاع الجلايد باث فايل and this is the size. دي أهمية الأرقام اللي احنا we ignore and we don't look at it. We think this is too much and as a clinicians we don't need to know that. No, we do have to know that. حتى الشركة even the companies itself they realize that they have and I'm going to share with you at the end of the day I have two clips to show you to summarize what I was saying here. حتى even the companies realize that they have a problem when they initially started the EDM file, the cold teen file, the very expensive file. They came the one file, the one solution that will make your life Bambi, whatever. At the end of the day, they came up with different bridging in there. They realized that the distance is hard, the gap is too big, and then they came up with, they developed an intermediate instrument. زمان كنا بنقص الفايل to develop intermediate, the golden mediums, to develop an intermediate between 20 and 25, we trim it, and then مبرد الضوافر ده, we trim the tips. أنا حضرت أيام سوداء يعني صراحة بس الحمد لله. Now you guys are spoiled with the toys around here, and we have to appreciate technology, of course. خلاص. The question is that إيه؟ لأن اللي هيحصل معاك إيه؟ إن أنت عملت glide path file, right? And then you came up with your first file, and the file is not going all the way, so and you don't know what's happening. So what are you going to do? You're going to start pushing the file, and when you push the file, you trap yourself. This is what is called taper lock. Because you put it, the file should lead the canal. The canal should lead the file. You don't want to put apical pressure. You will excuse me if I slip a couple words, right? You're the only non-speaking Arabic person here. Sorry guys. خلاص. This is the problem. لو أنا مش فاهم الفرق بين التابرز, if you understand different tapers and I use the file مسافة كبيرة وعايز أخلص, I start pushing the file. And I push the file, I trap myself, and that's what is called a taper lock. شايفين الفايل؟ Like it rotates and you're pushing it, مسك في حتة واحدة يروح مقطوع من هنا. That's a torsional fatigue. Systems بقى مش ايه ده؟ تمام يا عم قلت فكرتي. Okay. ده اللي انا بقول ده السيستم. I'm gonna use this. I'm probably gonna jump to the this system here. This is how it was produced. احنا فهمنا التريك بقى, والناس دي بتعمل فينا ايه, الشركات دي بتعمل فينا ايه بالظبط يعني, which I appreciate very much. I have nothing against the blacks يعني. We're sharing, we have the same common destination at the end of the day. This is how they advocated glide path file and their single file technique. It's a single file continuous rotation. وبعدين لقوا في مشكله فيها في النص. They didn't want to produce a new file. فقال لك كانوا بيجيبوا هنا السي ام ال 2004 في النص عشان ينزل، عشان يقصروا المشوار شويه. Then they came up with the 2005 the EDM 2005 وبرضه عندهم مشاكل. عملوا ايه بقى؟ Eugene Pluto عملوا and it was launched again in IDS. These are very recent things. It was very recently launched. عملوا بقى they kind of moved from the single file technique, a single lens technique to the crown down technique. ال back and forth technique. Do you ever hear about this term? كل واحد تيجي في دماغه حاجه كده يروح خابطنا تكنيك واحنا we have to بقى as academics we have to read and go after the target. يعملوا ايه بقى؟ They took the 2005, they took it halfway through. It's like a crown down thing. Then they brought up initially when they first marketed it, they told you that you need this file can go all the way down, and then they realized not. We had to believe them there, and now we had to believe them again now. And then they take this file, 2/3 of the canal, and then this is the new file. This is the latest file in this series, the 1503 file. Now the canal is ready to get the. يعني احنا ابتدينا كده وعشنا على كده فتره وبعدين كلنا عندنا مشاكل مش عارفين من ايه لغايه ما طبعا اللي فاهم this is where you juggle hybridized technique where you stop and okay this system I have a problem then I have to shift to another system. Okay. ورجعوا بقى كملوا and then they come up and finish everything at the end of the day. You know. لا احنا كده okay I'm sorry أنا عشان التايم factor and I have 7 minutes I'm going to skip this part and try to go to the video right away. True anatomy this is important. فاكرين احنا اتكلمنا على ايه ال continuous taper وبعدين progressive taper وبعدين فتح لنا تراك تاني بتاع السنجل فايل wave 1 wave 1 gold reciproc whatever you call it and now they come this is the regressive one. الconcept for regressive ايه؟ they believe of meters they believe that you need to enlarge here but you don't need to enlarge all the way down there. So this is why they called it a regressive file. If you superimpose them together and this is what you save of the dent. Okay, this is what you save of the dent. That's why it is called the regressive file. The file goes, and I'm not sure, I don't think they even displayed now how the sequence of the taper itself. But this is the concept. يعني 3 concepts مختلفين نفس الشركة لازم ابقى فاهم انا رايح اني concept والكنال هي اللي بتقول لي هستعمل اني system. Okay? Blah 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 blah. I'm gonna go run dun 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 dun. Guidelines to American Dental Association surprisingly and still valid, correct me if I'm mistaken. You need to enlarge the canal hand file until size 20. Who does this? I don't. Do you enlarge canal? But this is the current valid recommendations on their website. See? اللي عايز يشتغل Rotary, these are the golden rules by the American Association of Dentists, and it tells you you need to enlarge the file size hand file for using Rotary. I don't know, they need to revisit that. This is 3 minutes video where I'm showing, sorry معلش I've done this before ولما عرفت ان المحاضرة هتبقى أطول I didn't have time to remove my picture there. You do this is the clinical scenarios. This is a challenging case. You have 3 curvatures and we'll see how we're going to handle that. First thing we do the irrigation, never work in a dry canal, right? Then you do the scouting, remember, where we discover the canal, you do the stainless steel file, make sure you take the file out, you look at it, think as if you're taking impression to the canal, بتتعرفوا على بعض عشان تعرف بقى what kind of canal يعني. And then, you know, so we're doing watch winding movement, you're taking it to steps, increments, 1 millimeter at a time, not blah, blah, okay? Then use the orifice openers or orifice shapers, sorry. With this system is the EDM. This is dealing with the first curvature right here. Then you irrigate and recapitulate because you don't want to block yourself. Definitely, it's hard to work on plastic, but then you're handling the second curvature. And look what I'm doing here. I'm not going all the way. Even temptation, the canal is calling me, but I've know the trick. So this is the 1005. See, I stopped there. And we take the file out. Look where the file is clean. You take the file out and see where the debris is, where is the file is cutting. And definitely you have to irrigate and recapitulate. If you don't, you end up with blockage and a lot of things. So we did irrigation and the recapitulation. This is the recapitulation. If you wish, you go for the apical patency. Then we are ready for the third curvature. فاكرين الفايل وهو متعلق فوق? We solved the problem at increments. Now this is the new file that they came up with, the 1503. If you try to take the first one, the glide path file, all the way, sometimes you can, other times you might not be able to. But you don't want to take a risk. You just don't want to take a risk. You had your glide path file there. You're ready to go. طبعا forget about the plastic or pushing outside. This is not, hopefully this is not the real life. خلاص ده نازل شوفوا. Now, even at this stage, I find resistance. فاضل خلاص 2-3 مللي. لا. I wouldn't, مش هبلع الطعم ابدا. هقف واشوف الفايل بياخد فين وانضف الفايل واعمل irrigation, recapitulation, and then I go back and take the last couple millimeters down. Okay. I'm gonna skip that عشان ايه انا عايز this is the true anatomy thing, and I'm not gonna take 6 minutes, Mr. Chairman. I'll take it down. This is the again this tooth is 27 euro, this plastic little one for the demo thing, and this is what they call system based. It has its own gutta percha, it has own sizes, the same concept. Okay. And they have the beautiful plastic, the irrigation tip, and I think it's going to change a lot. This irrigation tip needed it. I was surprised that the company has been producing it for 4 years, but was never able to penetrate the market. And they produce it now for dense supply. It's booming because they're selling it with the they're marketing it with the true anatomy file. Okay, so we go in there and it's simple. But see, look at the curvature. This is the triple curvature thing. And we go to the procedures. Single file technique, as I mentioned, we're going to what I wasn't planning to discuss this anyway, but boom, 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 boom. I have 3 more minutes. Allah. It's just a very this guy is Hassan Yared. He started everything, reciprocation thing. He was crazy. He just simply took the F2 size file and sent it all the way down. And then they came up with a technique. I'm going to skip this. And all this we're going to discuss, inshallah, in the صح? I'm accepted. Okay. خلاص I'm done. My summary, فاكرين قلت لكم summary conclusion. This is my summary conclusion. ولا كلام من اللي قلته ده هيفيد بأي حاجة إذا أنا مش فاهم where do I stand in my learning curve. Where do I stand in my learning curve? Again, whatever is red for you might be green for me and vice versa. Then you'd be able to negotiate canals and do things like that. You go to 90-degree curvature. أنا خلصت خلاص. ده ما فيش حاجة. أنا عايز أفهم الناس تاخد courses على الإندو, which very well. You have to understand if you're going for a course, what are you missing to get? أنا كنت I was flying 2 weeks ago. I had to do a quick trip. دخلت خدت كورس مع الكابتن وانا راجع سوقت طياره. I'm just joking. This is what I'm telling you. It's interesting when you see the landing from the airplane and لو عندك صوت كان طلع شويه كلام يعني. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and I'm open for any questions.